episode number 4 of the Down South Photo Show. It's great to be with you for 4 episodes. Quite amazing that we've made it this far, Cameron. And I would like to say hello to Cameron Blake. How are you going, mate?
I'm good, Brent. How are you going today?
Not too bad at all, thank you.
4 episodes. That's the equivalent of 1 month.
1 month of
recording.
Well, that's right, because we've been releasing them weekly, pretty much.
Yeah.
So we were discussing off air about where does the time go.
Yes,
it's crazy. We've it felt like we recorded episode 3 yesterday, but it went live. Maybe it's because it takes a few days for the episodes to go live.
Yeah,
and then we're back recording again.
I think the fact that we still don't know really what we're doing. I think that's probably the main thing is that. It does. It feels like we record something, and then I think because you, like you said, you relive it when you're recording it. You're obviously editing and you're listening to it, and then you're re-editing and doing that. So yeah, but it's gone quick. But I'm well. I'm still in Melbourne. That's what I'm doing. So
we find you still in Melbourne, Australia.
Yes, that Melbourne. Yes. So I haven't decided when I'm going home yet. I'm literally just chilling out at Mum and Dad's here in Melbourne, and actually going to head out and do a few things the next week or so, then probably head home mid-July.
Well, I was going to ask you, if you find yourself in the city, do you have a yearning to go out and take landscape photos, or are you happy just to chill at the moment?
Happy just to chill at the moment. I got a bit of itchy feet yesterday. We actually went for a bit of an explore up through Marysville. And up through the Black Spur and up to Lake Mountain. Here's one for all the people of Victoria and wherever you're listening from. This is the first time I've ever been to a mountain that was sold out. We went to Lake Mountain. We got to the gate and they said, sorry, the mountain's sold out today. Have you got a ticket? We're like, what? It's a mountain.
What does that even mean?
I know. So they turned us around and we went up another Mount Margaret. We went up this back arse end of a nowhere mountain track and went up there and saw some snow with the kids. So they were pretty happy. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you saw the footage from Mount Hotham, the line for the one and only ski lift they had open. So,
isn't that nuts?
Yeah, it is absolutely bizarre. But keeping it, on the photography thread, the high country of Victoria.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get up there, and I actually contemplate after yesterday. I thought, you know what, bugger this. Maybe I'll go up to Hotham for a few days and try and take a few nice shots up there, because you're right, up at the Dinner Plain, Hotham Heights, Falls Creek, even across the Thredbo, Kosciuszko, under good snow cover, it's magical. There is a really nice spot.
Yeah. So. Yeah, no, it is great. And we, I would imagine, and I know we do already have a few international listeners, but I would imagine particularly people.
Do we really?
Northern, we have.
Wow.
At least 2 that I know of. Hey,
shout out to them. How you going?
That's right. I would imagine that, well, I know this to be fact, that people that live in the Northern Hemisphere may not really equate Australia to snow or having snow. I mean, obviously Tasmania, where you're based, Cam, snow everywhere. But here in mainland Australia, on the Big Island, as you like to call it, we also do get our fair share of snow. And particularly at this time of year, because I'm currently, I think outside it's about 8 degrees at the moment. So
this week in Melbourne, I think it's going to be like a top of 2 or 3 overnight. That's awesome. So having said that, though, it's a bit of a misconception that Tassie gets lots of snow, and this is something that I sort of got lost on a little bit before I moved down there. We do get snow, but to access it, it's almost a lot of it's almost impossible, because the mountains are so rugged and so remote. You can't actually get to places like Mount Hotham or something similar like that. So, and we don't get heaps of snow dumps. We seem to get one at the start of winter and a couple of big ones towards the end, and not much in between. So, if you are looking at snow photography, Tassie can be quite good, but you're going to need to really work your backside off to get to some places. In the back country, that's for sure.
Well, I would imagine, and I know that in Australia, the state that gets the highest rainfall is Queensland.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering where Tasmania might fall on that list, because of course to have snow you need precipitation. So
you do.
There's some homework for you, Cameron.
Well, no homework needed, because I sort of know.
Oh, bang! Hello.
Well, in a way, I know the west coast of Tassie gets 3 meters of rain a year. So not 3 liters, 3 meters.
Yes.
rain. But having said
it would be odd if it got 3 litres.
It would be very odd.
That's not a lot of rain.
That'd be causing some issues, I think. But but we do get a lot of rain down there. But it's not the wettest place in the world, but that west coast certainly gets its fair share of weather. So it's
it'd be. I mean, obviously in area, it's one of our smaller states. So
that's
where
right.
it falls in that list might be quite interesting to find out. But anyway, as per usual, we digress.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank everyone who's tuned in so far. This has been great. This has actually been, it's exceeded my expectations as to the kind of audience that we might attract to a show like this. In terms of sheer weight of numbers, it's been pretty cool. We love the feedback has been fantastic. So commenting below our YouTube clips, you can comment on Podbean as well. I've got to look into the other podcast apps as to how you can comment and things like that. But definitely via YouTube, we're getting a lot of comments there, via our Facebook page as well. So that's been really cool.
I think something else people can do if they've got a couple of minutes spare is when they're on iTunes, if they're listening through iTunes, you can actually leave a review. It's like a product review, but on us. So you can review us and tell us what you think. And I think that also helps us move around up the charts and move around, get more attention and get out there. So, but yeah,
we're actually incredible. We're now charting. We're starting to appear on lists and things, which is something I never thought I'd ever say in my entire life. But Cameron and I are charting.
We are, and not musically.
No, thank God for that.
Thank God.
A couple of little bits of homework from last week. Thanks to everyone who scored a free camera and photo cleaning cloth by leaving a comment below that they needed a cleaning cloth. We gave 5 away to the first 5 people that commented that. So that's awesome. They will be on their way to you guys soon. It's free, so it might take a bit longer. But anyway,
we've got everyone's contact details, so we know where they're going. So I know there's a couple of cleaning cloths going to Tassie. So
really?
They jumped on board real quick, the Tasmanians.
That's good. That's good. How are we splitting the postage on that?
I don't know. we haven't talked about anything like that, but
it's on me, mate. It's on me. I've got it.
Sure. All right. I'd imagine once we sort of chart in the top 10 of iTunes or whatever, like we won't even need money anymore. It'll just be growing on trees, I'd imagine.
Oh, naturally, that's right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
So as we like to kick off most weeks so far, all 3 of them, we know that you've been based in Melbourne and you've been up into the hills. Did you manage to get any photos while you're up there?
I had a car full of screaming kids, and there would have been some. I took a couple of shots of them playing in the snow. I took that Olympus 8-25 again. I was as not to be mistaken to the Canon 8-25.
Will I ever hear the end of that?
No, you will not. So yeah, I took that out. I was very tempted through that Black Spur Yarra Ranges region to stop and take some photos because it was magical. It was misty. It was a little bit drizzle, a little bit foggy, but it was just too much traffic around to pull over.
Did they? Was there still a lot of trees down up that way?
There was a hell of a lot of trees down. Yeah, that forest. Because for those that don't know, Melbourne had a huge storm. Was about 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago. Yep.
Yeah, it's a really, really big rainstorm, but windstorm as well, and huge gust of winds. And that forest, for anyone that's been up through the Black Spur up towards Narberthong, that forest, it looks like it's had a bit of a thinning haircut out. Like it's just, you can see so much further through the forest. But it actually sort of worked for what I was looking at yesterday. The fog was actually probably deeper into it. It was more prominent because there wasn't as many trees around. So it may pay dividends in the end. But yeah, there was a lot of snap branches and a lot of repair work being done. You could see, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, obviously, very natural way to thin the forest, and of course that's been happening since we were long before here. So obviously making room for more trees to grow, and it is quite a pretty area and a bit of an unsung area, I think, aside from locals who know it quite well. They're certainly a great spot for photos, and the road itself becomes an integral part of a lot of photography up there.
Yeah, it does. It's one of those. There's a couple of really classic shots through that Black Spur Road where you actually incorporate that black road and the yellow line. And most times with landscape photography, I know with me, I try and keep as much man-made elements out of my work as I can. But that's just one of those ones where you've just got to. It's like a jetty or something else like that. You've just got to put that road in the shots. Just gives you a beautiful leading line, that little vanishing point, and the black contrasting against the green of the forest works really well. But no photo. I think I took 2 photos for the whole day, and but we had a good day. We had a good time. The kids made a bit of a snowman, and we got the car dirty, and they were happy.
Well, that's good. Well, that's 2 more photos than I took this week, because I've had another one of those weeks where I haven't been able to get out into the field, but it's a bit of a theme for me at the moment, which I'm trying to break.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think I need an 8th day of the week, just so I can fill that day up with all useless stuff as well.
Yeah.
But I've decided it's going to be known as Bren's Day, and it's kicking off pretty soon.
Bren's Day. That's pretty good. I like that. Yeah.
Yep. No, that's what we're rolling with. And that's the day I'm going to go out and take all my photos.
Yep.
Every sunrise is going to be epic on Bren's Day. Every sunset's going to be breathtaking.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have fantastic foreground and the whole bit. It's going to be awesome.
Maybe more of what you got behind you there. That's a new photo? Is that a
I know.
Is that a sunset?
I worked out how to change my background.
Yeah, you've done one part of changing your video and background. That's pretty good. The other part of it is
one thing at a time, Cameron. I am still in 4x3, and there's nothing wrong with 4x3. I'm a child of the 70s and 80s, and 4x3 rocked my world. So I'm sticking with that. And I'm going to try and move a little bit out of the way. That there would be 13th Beach, which is not very far away from here at all. Like I can get to 13th Beach in about 10 minutes from here. Fantastic spot for photography, particularly sunset. It faces the beach runs east-west.
Yeah,
so it's great. Perfect. You can shoot sunrises and sunsets there till the cows come home.
I like those rocks. The rocks are really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very, very cool spot to take photos, and great for long exposure stuff like I was doing there. Yeah. But also 13th Beach is quite famous for 2 reasons. One, it's got a fantastic range of surf breaks up and down 13th Beach. There's a lot of spots where you can go for a surf there, and it also happens to be how I get between my 2 stores, Ocean Grove and Torquay. I drive along 13th Beach every time.
That's convenient.
And it's lovely. It's really, really nice, because I get to switch off for 5 minutes and just, check out what the surf's up to or what the conditions are like. I have a couple of times sort of delayed opening the shop by 20 minutes so I could stop and it's just I've got to photograph this, so I jump out and do that sort of stuff.
I reckon I'm going to make a note, because I reckon there's a really good podcast topic on those shots that you just had to stop for.
Yes.
And I think we could maybe get our listeners and viewers involved with this one as well, is that show us your best shot that wasn't planned, that you didn't actually go out to do, but you had to stop the car or stop your bike or whatever. Because some of the shots you get when you don't expect it, it'd be interesting to see what people have got from all around the globe, because we've got international listeners. Yeah,
we have. That's a very cool topic. And for me, it's still, however many years into my journey as a photographer, there's still that rush. It's so cool when you stumble across a scene or it comes to you. Just one that flashed to mind 3 years ago when I was actually putting my Torquay store together. It was this time of year. I was driving back, and the sky, I can't tell you how saturated the color was.
Yeah.
It was even to the point where I was I stopped my car, I grabbed my gear and literally sprinted to the beach, because this color, I was completely shot, absolutely knackered, but I got set up on the beach. There was a girl there walking her dog, and she said to me, "Do you know, if I wasn't here to see this with my own eyes, I would think your photograph was faked." It was one of those just bizarre
fire in the sky type of thing.
Nuts, absolutely nuts. And I'm talking purples and red, and a really clever editor of a YouTube clip might make that photo magically appear on the screen now for you to have a little look at.
Yeah, we don't have one of them.
Do we need to be silent for a minute while people drink that in? No.
Fine. Is it that good? It needs a minute of silence.
I needed an hour of silence afterwards, man. I was buggered. Like, I had to get that photo though. And
well, you know what I do now? Whenever I go out anywhere, pretty much, if I'm on my own, even when I was in the kids the other day, I have my camera ready.
Yes.
It's either, if there's no one in the car, it just sits on the passenger seat next to me with just a standard sort of wide angle zoom, just in case something pops up. or if the kids are in the car or I'm out with friends or whatever, it's always in the back seat, just ready to go, because it happens. You're just driving along and you'll be chatting away or listening to some music. You're like, holy hell, that's going off. I've got to pull over the car, or I've got to get an angle on that, or whatever it is. And by the time you set your camera up, get all the stuff out of the boot and put all your stuff together and use your new cleaning cloth to wipe your lens down and all that kind of stuff, the color's gone. And again, it just goes back to that thing, the fleeting moments which happen in nature. You got to be on the ball for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes back a little bit to what we were talking about last week in terms of my crucial equipment that I take. And one of them is definitely the iPhone, mainly for that very reason, because I've always said the best camera is the one you've got on you. So, sometimes that might be all you've got, but at least you've captured the scene. And we've talked about this already, but the quality that you can get out of a phone these days is perfectly usable for a photograph. So
absolutely.
Well, more than for sure. So
it's definitely improved, doesn't it?
Yes. So look at us not sticking to the script at all. That's fantastic. I love it. One thing I think we should mention is that you and I had a little get together on Sunday, which was fantastic.
We had an in-person meeting.
I know, it was bizarre. It was like worlds colliding.
It was good. I went down and caught up with you and your beautiful family, and thank you again for the beautiful afternoon and a few cheeky ciders, and had the fire going. It was beautiful. Watched a bit of football, and it was good.
It was good.
Yeah, it was good. It's a beautiful part of the world down there, and you've inspired me to maybe go explore that Great Ocean Road a bit more soon, I think. So
yes, it is absolutely phenomenal. We're very, very lucky to be based where we are.
Yeah.
And we will eventually return the favour down in Tasmania at some point.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
What have we got next? How was your week apart from not doing anything? Was that it? Is that your week, not doing anything? Or
my week wasn't like your week. My week was busy. I'm really, really stoked to say that the shops have been incredibly busy this week. Now, I can put that down to a couple of things. One of them being school holidays generally makes us nice and busy. School holidays in Victoria at the moment.
A new photo show.
The new photo show has, might have stirred up a few as well, but it's been great. Loads of printing. In particular, canvas prints are just. It's funny. Canvas prints have been around for a long, long time, and someone said to me the other day, canvas prints are on the way out. I could not disagree more.
No.
I'm doing more prints on canvas now than ever.
Yeah.
It's great. I think canvases are fantastic for a couple of reasons. One, the main thing is they just let the photo do the talking, particularly unframed canvas. So, there'd be nothing worse than getting one of your photos framed up and put on the wall, and someone walks in and says, "Hey, nice frame."
Yeah.
It's all about the photo when you put them on canvas. And I know I was very, very lucky to print and stretch up a couple of canvases from a very, very well-known Tasmanian landscape photographer during the week.
I don't know if there is one, is there? Did you get some of Peter's work, Peter Dombrowski's work, did you? No, yes, I did. I got a couple of canvases printed up for my brother's new house. So thank you for that. They look great. One of them is the one behind us, but we did it as a bit of a panorama-y type of scenario. Another one was of the Flinders Ranges as well. So they came up looking great, and he's put them on his wall. We might flash up those photos on the wall. There we go.
I will. I'll stick them up there for you. And how cool is it that you literally a week ago shot those photos, and now they are adorning your brother's house?
Yeah, I know, it's pretty nuts. And I must admit, I am guilty of sometimes not printing a lot of my work. Even though I sell prints and canvases and stuff like that, I get a little bit lazy on the print side of things, that I sometimes take some really nice shots, or what I like nice shots, and they just sit on hard drives or they sit on a website, and I don't really promote them and I don't really get them printed. So,
well, you're not Robinson Crusoe there. And there's loads of people that have got literally thousands of photos that they could be showing off. And I get it. You're not going to be able to print every single photo.
No.
But even to the point where you might, every couple of months, you might print one of them up and rotate them through your walls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A saying that I really like is, a photograph isn't a photograph until it's printed.
Yeah, I agree.
Says the guy that runs 2 print stores.
Yeah.
But,
did you make that up yourself?
No, take that with a pinch of salt. But I think that there's an element of truth to that, because in this day and age with digitalization, the images don't get seen. They just don't. They might end up on a website that someone scrolls through once in a blue moon, or they might just disappear altogether.
Well, I think that works pretty well. One of our main topics we're going to talk about tonight, or today, or this morning, depending where you are,
right.
is we'll get to that in a second. But I think it's very crucial that you print things out and just not leave them on a hard drive, because once they're on a hard drive, no one sees them. You put them online and people just flick past them and flash past them. They're gone within a couple of seconds.
Yeah, that's right.
To be able to have them hanging somewhere proudly, or exhibiting them, or in magazines or whatever it might be, I think it's always a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. It's always worth showing off your pictures as well. I mean, when you've got one of your own photos hanging on the wall, it's a fantastic talking piece as well.
Yeah.
And everyone likes to show off their handiwork. So, knock yourself out. Go and get yourself a photo printed. Print it with me if you want. Print it wherever you want, but just get it up on your wall.
Just get it printed. That's right. That's right.
Yep, love it. So our main topics for tonight is two things that we want to talk about. I want to do a quick rewind back to last week and just cover off on a little topic that we talked about last week, which I'll come to in a sec. And then our other probably main topic of the night is, what is a photograph worth? And we're going to come at that from obviously a financial aspect, from a dollar worth. What is a photograph worth? So that's going to be a very interesting subject, I think. But first of all, I just want to go back to what we were talking about last week, which prompted the giveaway of the cleaning cloths. And that was, we had a bit of a discussion. Well, I did. I mentioned a very, very quick piece on UV filters. And I guess UV filters, it sort of harkens back to old school photography. A UV filter was literally made to filter out UV light, but of course they became more of a protective filter.
Yes.
And to the point now where I still call them UV filters, but a lot of companies like Hoya, who is one of the, we are not sponsored, Hoya, who who are probably still one of the world's largest filter manufacturers, now actually call them protective filters. You can still buy UV and skylight filters, but they're talking more about protective filters. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is because we had a comment on YouTube from Jeff last week. G'day, Jeff, if you're watching tonight. He just said, great show again, guys. Thank you, Jeff. There seems to be an eternal debate on putting UV filters on lenses, that the UV properties aren't needed for digital sensors as opposed to film days when UV or the old Skylight 1B was indeed a benefit, or that adding questionable quality glass, either UV or clear protection filter in front of an optical optimized lens is counterproductive. Come back to you on that one. That said, I do have one or the other on 90% of my glass. He's meaning the UV or skylight filter.
Yeah.
But I know it's a touchy and divisive subject, and he's definitely torn. Well, I think it really just comes back to literally the semantics of the name of the thing. I mean, putting a UV filter on, so if you've got an old filter from 1990 and you put it on your lens now, there will be a very, very slight color cast if you're using a UV filter, but it's absolutely minimal and easily corrected, obviously, using whatever correction software you want to. So I think I just wanted to go back to, because there was a little bit of confusion about what I was talking about, UV filters, but I'm really talking about protective filters.
Yeah.
And these days, with the cost of some lenses, I think last week we mentioned the L series lenses from Canon being one. Your new Olympus 8-24, which is 8-24, 25?
8-25.
8-25.
What have you got against this lens?
I don't know. It's but we're talking about a $100 lens. It's not cheap.
No.
And if we were to scratch that element or the end element with, like we said last week, with your hoodie or with your beanie or whatever, like people use, or a baseball cap, you're going to scratch it. You're going to rub off the protective coating. So I was coming more from the angle of protective filters, and I apologize for calling a UV filter every time, but protective filters are really, really important.
Yeah.
To Jeff's point, yes, you can get some pretty shabby, cheap UV filters. Now, the analogy I always make is that's like putting Tirana hubcaps on a Ferrari.
Yeah.
There's no benefit whatsoever. In fact, you are doing yourself a disservice. It's counterproductive because the last element on your lens, the last piece of glass on your lens, is a cheap, crappy piece of glass that's just going to, that doesn't give the lens any chance whatsoever. So having said that, if you've got an expensive lens, please don't skimp on your protective filter. So companies like Olympus make their own filters with the same coatings that they put on the lenses.
That's right.
So, and companies like Hoya are now making filters the same way, where they've got really high quality coatings. I just had a quick look at Hoya's website, and their HD filter has 18 layers of coatings. Now, those coatings, as I mentioned last week, are designed to absorb light rather than reflect light.
Yeah.
So someone then might say, okay, but if you're cleaning the filter, aren't you doing the same thing that you would have done to the lens? And of course, the answer to that is, well, the filter's about $150. The lens is anything up to $5,000. So
that's right. Yeah. I think I like personally with UV, I this is going to go against the trend a bit, but I don't have UV filters on any of my lenses. I have circular polarizers on all my lenses. And the only time I take my circular polarizers off is if I'm doing astro or nighttime photography, where I don't obviously need a circular polarizer, and I shoot without a protective filter or UV filter. And the only reason I do that is because I very rarely take my circular polarizer off. So I've already got that sort of protective sort of filter already on the front with the circular pole. And then I just really take care of my gear as much as I can when I'm shooting astro, not to scratch it or mark it or put it in the bag without a lens cap on and things like that. But yeah, I think back in the film days, as you said, and as Jeff was referring to, like, you had different colored filters and different types of skylight filters and, warming filters, things like that. And that was relevant for the film days. I think digital these days, because like you said, it is super easy to correct things, where in film days, you couldn't just get the film out and just change the color temp of your negative afterwards. You're stuck with what you had. And I think more to the skill of people shooting film, they knew exactly how that type of filter would affect. But yeah, it's always a tricky one. And I get a lot of questions on workshops about that. It's like, what should I do with these UV filters? And I tell them exactly the same thing I've just said there, that I personally don't use them. But one thing I think people make the mistake of is, and we can probably touch on this quickly, is they actually stack filters. So people have their UV filter on the front of their lens, then they put their circular polarizer on the front of that, and then they might have an adapter that has a soft rad or something like that on front of that.
Yeah.
Light passing through glass is you want to try and minimize that diffraction of passing through filters and glass. So exactly. I would always say, if you're going to put a circular polarizer on, take the UV off. Do it carefully. Do it in the car or do it in your room, wherever beforehand. But it's an interesting topic with UV filters and protective filters.
Yeah, there's loads of reasons why you shouldn't shoot through any extra pieces of glass that shouldn't be there. And the other main reason, of course, is you can end up with vignetting, which basically means, particularly if you're shooting landscape ultra wide angle, you literally can see the filter.
Yeah.
When you start to stack them, because you end up with basically 2 or 3 layers of the ring that's holding the filter, and you can see that.
Yeah.
And so you get the vignetting or the darkening of the corners.
And I've been caught out a couple of times doing astro with UV filters on or protective filters on as well. If you're at, for example, at a location where you're doing the Milky Way, but you might have like a house light or a farm light or some city lights in the foreground, in the background, you can actually sometimes get like bouncing from the filter to the lens element back out to the filter, and you'll actually get light bouncing through your filter back out the front of your lens. So you'll actually get these weird artifacts on your shots after the fact. So that's why I try and, like I said, try and minimize my filters as much as I can, just to stop that diffraction and bouncing around of light, where that lens has got a beautiful coating on it. It's just that extra step of being super careful with your really expensive camera lenses. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And just going back a step as well to the way you were saying that you like to leave a circular polarizer on your lens. That's great. That's your technique. That's the way you do it.
Yeah.
Personally, I leave a circular polarizer in my bag and then swap them out as I need them.
Yeah.
In fact, of late, I've actually been, like a lot of photographers, shooting landscape, particularly around the ocean and water, the old neutral density filter as well. So there's a whole other podcast.
Filters,
topic, the ND filters.
I actually think we'd go different ways on that conversation. So we can put that down as another topic we can talk about. But neutral densities I don't use hardly ever.
Yep.
Very, very rarely do I use them on my work, but
yeah, they've become a bit of an in thing to have. But I dabbled with them for a while, and I got a bit excited about what they can offer.
Yeah.
But there's a few camera models out there now that actually have built-in ND filters anyway. Olympus EM1 Mark III, I would imagine is one.
The Mark III, the one, they do. I think that's a totally different topic. I think we can get into because I used the inbuilt neutral density filters on my Olympus the other day in the Tarkine. I did a handheld 2-second coastal shot of water running, similar to what you got behind you, running over rocks, all built in, no tripod, image stabilizer. It blew away the guys that I was there with. They're like, you can't be shooting that 2 seconds without a tripod with a built-in neutral density filter. I'm like, well, I can.
Yeah. So, and I just did.
So yeah, we'll park that. I reckon we'll park that topic because that'll. But that's a great question and topic raiser by Jeff in regards to the filters. So I think we finished. Would you have anything else to say on that?
Thanks, Jeff. Awesome. And
okay.
If we raise something that you need more information on, again, like Jeff did, leave a comment below. Yeah. Flick us a message any way you can, and we will try and cover it off.
If we're 100% wrong, still leave a comment. We won't listen to it.
Hopefully people pick us up or give us a shout out when we're wrong. Pull us up because
I'm sure they will.
Man, I don't know everything.
No one does. Unless no one does.
Don't do it.
No, we won't go that way. Moving right along. We're trying not to be controversial on this show, but before
exactly right. Yeah. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about on the podcast today, and can be a very controversial subject, so let's do it, was what's a photograph worth? And again, we want to come at this from a monetary perspective because there's been a lot of photographs over the years, and particularly over the last sort of 10 to 20 years, that have sold for quite a bit of money, Cameron. So
allegedly, yes.
Well, exactly. And that's one of the topics that we're going to talk about. So I did, I can't believe how much research I've done for tonight's episode, Cam.
It's getting a bit scary that you're actually doing research for this show.
I know, it is a worry, isn't it? So I went ahead and did a little Google search on the most expensive photographs ever sold.
Yep. Can I have a guess? I don't think I know the answer to this.
You don't? Okay.
I don't think I do. Is it the one we're thinking? Is it the real famous one that everyone thinks was the highest selling photograph of all time? Was it 21 million?
No, that's putting a bit of Cam Blake Mayo on it, which I love.
Right. 6 million.
It's much better. $6.5 million.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Okay, so the photographer in question is Peter Lick. Peter
he's an Aussie.
He is an Australian. Well, he's Australian native, but he immigrated to the US in the 1980s, I think, the early 80s. Look, Peter's a fantastic photographer. No question. He has taken some wonderful photographs. Peter also ran, I'm not sure about the current situation with Peter, but I know he did run a lot of beautiful galleries. Like the way he displayed his photography was nuts. He was printing on Cibachrome, which was you can't get Cibachrome anymore. A very, very high super gloss paper that could be backlit, and also made his photographs just pop. Like
they sort of came out looking like almost metallic, like, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Like, you could say it's super gloss, but borderline metallic look. And he'd use a lot of sort of dark matte boards and dark frames around it to make the colours really pop. And if you went into one of his galleries, when I lived up in Queensland, he opened one in Noosa, and I went in, and I went to his one in Cairns as well. Stunning. The floors were these amazing spotted gum floors, and the lighting system would have been worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he really showed his photography off very, very well. But again, we digress. He sold a photo that he took in 1999 at a place called Antelope Canyon in Arizona. The image is called Phantom. I'm going to put it up on the screen.
It's going to pop up on the screen right about
it is
now.
Yeah, and the photograph sold for $6.5 million. And then, of course, questions started to circulate about how legitimate was that sale, who bought it, and all that sort of stuff. And it doesn't take much of a bit of a look around Google to see there's a lot of people who find that figure a little dubious. A lot of people said that it was more of a marketing exercise than a real sale. I don't know.
I don't think there's been a definite outcome of that. I don't think anyone's actually really been able to get to the bottom of what that was. A lot of that probably came back on jealousy. I reckon a lot of people saying, there's no way you can sell for $6.5 million. You know, maybe he did. Maybe he just hit one out of the park, and the rest of us don't like that.
No, I completely agree. I mean, it's if he got $6.5 million for a photograph, hats off, mate.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Game on. Yeah,
like wow.
Yeah,
that's nuts. I mean, which, you know, if I sold a photo for $6,000, I'd fall off my chair, let alone $6.5 million. So, you know, and you hit the nail on the head straight away, Cam. And there was a lot of jealousy around very, very, very quickly. Now, if it was a marketing exercise, well done to you as well. You pulled that off. Everyone, I mean, you know, that was sold in November 2014. So we're talking 7 years ago.
Yeah,
and here we are still talking about it.
And from that sale, what I noticed a lot in the industry of landscape photography as well is all of a sudden people went from just selling their normal, you know, whatever size prints they were for X amount of dollars. All of a sudden there was these limited edition prints, and there was these one of 10 prints. And, you know, each time the print sold, the price would go up. There was all these different marketing ploys from photographers to try and milk as much money as they could out of their photos, which, you know, again, we're coming back to what is a photo worth? To me, the ultimate answer to that is whatever you want it to be worth. If it's your photograph, put whatever price tag you want on it. Whether or not you sell it or not, that's a completely different, you know, story there.
Yeah.
But if you think your work is good and you think it's appealing and you think people want to hang it on their walls or display it somewhere, then, you know, put what price you want on it. But
so there's a difference between what a photograph is literally worth and what someone prepared to pay for it.
Yeah, that's right. So,
you know, there is a big difference there. And of course, photography, particularly any kind of photography, is always going to be compared to the art world and to paintings and the like. And, you know, there's always a stigma attached to photography, rightly or wrongly, that a lot of people think all you're really doing is pressing a button. And, you know, you and I, and I'm sure most of the listeners know, there's way more to it than that.
Yeah, that's right.
But we had this conversation on Sunday as well. We were talking like, I can't paint to save myself.
Oh, that's right. We'll say, I said the same thing. It's like people who paint pictures, like to me, I say they're artists. Like if you can mix those colors, you can see the vision, you can see the tones, the shades, all that kind of jazz, and still paint something that looks something like our background here. Then you are miles ahead of me in the art world. And like you said, in a way, we are just button pressures. But I think the difference between paintings and photography as well, you know, you just look at the most famous paintings of all time, like the Mona Lisa. There's only one Mona Lisa. You know, that's not like they're mass producing these prints and things like that. Where a photograph, you know, if you're selling one of, which I think was in the case of Peter Lick's work, that was a one-off. Like that was the only one that was sold, and I think he's
technically, that in that size that it was sold in, and and it was a black and white version of a color photograph.
That's right.
That he had sold in the past.
Yeah. Okay.
So even that is, you know, a little. It's interesting.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to be controversial about it or anything, but to me, it doesn't seem right that he was. That he took a photo that had already sold and said, no, this is a one-off because I've converted it to black and white. Yeah. Okay, sure. I mean, it might be the only black and white version in existence.
Yeah.
But it takes more of the shine off the sale, doesn't it?
It does. It chucks a few more shadows around what was going on.
It's a fantastic topic. I love it. So, I get asked a lot, and by a lot I mean probably every couple of months, I'll have someone email me, wander into the shop, call me up, who's been taking some great photos. Normally it's a younger person who's getting into photography, which of course I encourage and I love. But the question is always, what should I be charging for my work?
Yeah.
Now, straight away that I get a little bit sort of uncomfortable in my seat, and I start thinking, well, you know what? I had to work market stalls, and I had to approach galleries. Cam, I literally had doors slammed in my face going around trying to sell my work at times. You know, back when I was their age or, you know, younger.
Yeah.
It's almost like, well, sorry, you're going to have to work that out for yourself because, like I just said, a photograph is worth what someone's prepared to pay for it.
Yeah.
Now, as an example, I sell my photography in my shop, and I reckon, look, quite regularly, people say, Brendan, you're too cheap.
Yeah.
And of course, the first thing I say back to them is, how many would you like?
Yeah. Yeah.
and and it's always, well, yeah, that's not what I meant. It's like, well, obviously I'm not cheap enough.
Yeah, that's right. If it's such a bargain basement price, I'll take 6 of them, thanks.
Yeah, exactly. So, look, I mean, and that's being a little bit flippant and sort of glossing over the subject. But when it comes back to people that ask me, how much should I be selling my photographs for? Well, I do eventually, they get it out of me, but I tell them how much I sell my stuff for. You can find it on my website. I mean, it's not hard. You can find it on anyone's website.
Yeah.
What my going rate is for that, for certain photographs. I've got a photograph that Cam knows of a kangaroo hopping across a lake, which
is
will be
right there. It's there.
There it is on the screen now.
Yeah.
I can't believe I waited till episode 4.
Usually it's like first 4 minutes.
That's right.
Of meeting Brendan. Have you seen my kangaroo?
That's right, exactly. This is hands down the best photograph I've ever taken, and I'm never going to beat it. I know I'm not. I'm going to try, but I'm never going to beat this photograph. And I sell that photograph regularly. Like I'm very, very fortunate to say that. I sell a copy of that photograph pretty much every week in various sizes. What's it worth? Well, it makes me an income. It puts food on the table. It pays my bills. I actually call this photograph my superannuation fund.
Yeah.
And I took it in 1998.
Yeah. Was it on film too, wasn't it?
It was shot on film.
Yeah.
And it's shot on an old Pentax film camera.
Yeah.
We'll dedicate another part of a podcast to that photo, but getting back to what is, to me, that photograph's worth an absolute bloody fortune. But over the last 20 years, so I now wouldn't mind saying to everyone, okay, that photograph is now worth $10,000.
Yeah.
So why can't I do that, Cam?
I think what goes on these days, and I think this is going to sound controversial, but I think it's a generational thing. I think a lot of, the people that you're saying are coming into your shops, and I get a lot of the questions the same. I get random messages on social media and emails saying, hey, Cam, love your work. I've got a photo like that. How much should I sell it for? And the answer always is, well, I can't tell you how much your work is worth. It's always a back and forth. Well, how did you come up with that price, and how did you do this? And you can go down the whole avenue of like, there's 20, 25 years of experience. There's thousands and thousands of hours doing stuff. There's more thousands of dollars buying gear. There's photography degrees. There's hiking kilometers to go get things. I think what the issue is these days is that there's a lot of young people starting photography, which I think is fantastic. I think the more people shooting, the better everyone's mental health will be, and I think the better the world will be. But I think what it is, it's a quick fix for people. They get on Instagram, they start putting up photos, they watch YouTube clips to find out how to do things in 2 seconds, and they get to that end point where we were probably asking that question after 5-10 years of work. Okay, I've got this gallery or this portfolio of work. I'm going to start trying to sell some of it. What's it worth? These guys are there within 2 seconds, and all of a sudden they're like, I've got these great work. I'm getting lots of attention, and I'm getting a lot of people asking me to buy. How do I price it? And that's, I think, where it becomes a real tricky thing for them, because I look at people and think, I sort of get a little bit sort of selfish in a way. I'm like, well, you've been shooting for 5 minutes. How can you be selling shots for $5,000 where I've been shooting for that much? And, I might sell my shots for $500 or $1,000, depending on what it is.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one, but I think, to me, I think it's a question that can't be answered, to be honest, because I think it's just comes back to the person, where you're trying to sell it, who you're trying to sell it to. If you want to put $10,000 on your kangaroo print, someone will buy it.
Yeah,
there might only be someone. It might not be.
Yeah, and then this is normally where the conversation leads when I'm talking to people about what price they should put on their photography, and it invariably comes back to, all right, what's the end game here? Are you wanting to sell loads of prints? So, for example, I can sell any photograph for $10,000. Sorry, I can sell a photograph for $10,000 once a year, or I can sell the same photograph for $500 50 times a year.
Yeah.
All right. So it's not hard to do the math there. So, and it's like everything, supply and demand is going to dictate the pricing.
Yeah.
It's when you start to see ridiculous prices put on, well, what I consider ridiculous prices put on average work, that sort of skews it, and it makes it really, it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation.
Well, I think also you've got to be, I've gone down that path of also thinking like that, where you've got to be really careful about, I shy away from critiquing anyone's work ever.
Yep.
Like, because, you know, to you and I, what might be a really great photo, someone else might go, yeah, that's okay. Or, you know, you got someone who thinks, you know, the blurry blob of blackness is an amazing shot they got by accident because it's arty. And we look at it and go, that's just rubbish. Like, I think it's a really tricky one where, you know, people putting massive prices on their work. I think it's, like I said, it comes back to the individual. If you think your work is worth $10,000, then put $10,000 on it. Whether or not, I think there's two components to that. There's like I said, there is a supply and there is a demand. You know, you can supply the photo for $10,000 a pop, but maybe no one's going to buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, to that end, I'm now going to make all my photos $10,000, every one of them.
Yes.
But I'm going to run a 99% off sale for a little while.
That sounds good. I used to there was also a thing online. I think it goes back to a little bit around social media again as well. Like, I used to get a lot of images for places like Tourism Tasmania and Parks and Wildlife Tasmania, and, you know, a few Tourism Australia shots and things like that. And the rate of what they will pay for a photo has drastically dropped over the last 10 years. Huge, like massively dropped. So you used to be
able, what do you put that down to, Cam?
I put it down to the fact that most people are posting thousands, if not millions, of photos a day on social media.
Yes.
That tourism mobs can quite easily just ask permission to share, or hashtag me permission and I'll share it around. The whole selling of photographs has been completely washed out in regards to what you can ask for photos. And I think that, to me, is a direct reaction to the social media mass of people putting. So we're pretty much our own worst enemy, because so many people are putting up so many amazing shots. It's just devalued the opportunity to try and sell shots at a decent rate, unless you are quite unique in what you do, or you live in a unique location, or you have your own gallery where you've got things really nice framed up.
Yep.
Then I think, you know, if you're not doing one of those three things, you go back into this massive pool of everyone selling the same stuff, and it gets really, really tricky. It
does, and it's always going to be a topic for discussion, because you know, what you think is worth X, I might not think is worth anything like that. So it's really, really tough. Here locally, where I sell my work, quite often I'll have a customer. They'll come in. They'll like the photo. I can tell they like the photo, but then they'll come up and say, "Oh, by the way, my father's ashes are spread there. You know, I would love to have that photo on my wall."
Right.
Which is awesome. I mean, that I'm given that privilege of being able to photograph that area for them, but they're buying it for a real emotive reason. It means a lot to them. And I start thinking, okay, well, what if it was a different, like the same spot, but a completely different photo? Would it have the same appeal? Like, it's interesting that way. And what value do you put on that?
Yeah.
You know,
that is a tough one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm always, the way I price my stuff generally is, okay, first of all, you want to cover your costs. You know, when I'm looking at it from a purely decorative point of view, in other words, someone's coming in, they've got a spot above the fireplace that they want a picture for, you know, I've got to cover my costs. And then I work in, it's not a straight formula, but it's almost, I think about it and say, okay, well, you know, how much do I need to make off this section of wall in my gallery, for example? Sometimes I can look at it that way. Say, okay, I've got real estate here on the walls that I need to fill, that needs to make me money to pay the rent, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So, you know, but having said that, I haven't changed my prices for 15 years.
Yeah, it's all good to talk about, isn't it? But you got to.
No.
I don't think I sell anywhere near as like you're definitely more of a print seller than I would be. I think,
Yeah.
And I think mainly you've got the experience and the background in that, running the markets for so long as you did, and you've got your own store where you can hang your work up, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I think what I've experienced over the last few years, I've sold a heap of digital images, so lots and lots of digital images for tourism and parks and wildlife, and even they're poles apart. Like whether or not you're dealing with a government agency or you're dealing with a small business that wants a photo of Cradle Mountain or something like that, you've got to look at what budget they would have as well. They might come to you and say, hey, I love that shot of Cradle Mountain. We need it for our little, Airbnb that's got one room. We just want like a little small print just to make it look nice. You're not going to charge them $10,000 for that because, you've got to read your market as well. You've got to look at them and say, well, if I want to sell this, I've probably got to, come to the party a bit more where, if you've got a government department who's got budgets every year, they've got to try and match and meet, you can maybe sort of go in with a different approach. But yeah, it's a tricky one.
It is. It's a great subject. I love it. It just fascinates me. Just going back to, we talked about Peter Lick's photograph, which is called Phantom, which is sold for $6.5 million.
Would you ever go back to work if you sold a print for $6.5 million?
No.
I'd pay my house off and say, "Yep,
I'm done." Well, no, it's funny though, isn't it? Because
you would though, like you would keep like the passion of taking shots.
That's never gonna leave me.
Yeah.
You and I think are quite similar in terms of we use photography as a creative outlet as well. Yep. So there's no putting a price on that. You just can't. I mean, like you said, mental health and that sort of stuff. I come away from shoots like, particularly the impromptu shoots that we're talking about before, where something has happened, like it's an amazing scene that's just unfolded. My Mungo trip a few weeks ago, I was there for 3 days. I came back the most relaxed I've ever been. Yeah. Most relaxed I've ever been. What a silly thing to say. I came back really relaxed.
Most relaxed you've been in some time.
And all the stresses of running a business and raising a family and all that sort of stuff left me for a few days.
Yeah,
it was awesome. What a tonic! There ain't no money in the world that can cover that.
You know what? We've just answered what a photo's worth, right there.
Yeah, well,
that's what a photo is. To me, that's what a photo is worth.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the experience behind the photograph. It's whether or not you're on your own experiencing something like that sunrise or sunset you're talking about before, where the color's amazing, or whether or not it's just that. Like I get a real buzz sometimes where I'll be out somewhere and I know that no one else in the entire globe is seeing what I'm seeing at this time.
Yeah, that's cool, isn't it?
Like, and to me, if people came up to me and said, "Oh, geez, I wish I was there. Here's a 6x4 print. Have one." What I mean? Right, I got the richness comes for me from actually experiencing out in the field and actually clicking that button and getting back to your computer and go, wow, that's just pretty special. So
yeah, no, I completely agree, and hopefully our listeners sort of get that same buzz
if they haven't
out of photography. You have rabbited on a little bit about this one, but that's good though. I just wanted to quickly mention. So we basically paid out Peter Lick to no end because we didn't believe that it would have sold for $6.5 million. I don't. I mean, I'll put it out there. I don't believe that it actually sold for $6.5 million.
I think it was I'm in the same boat as you. I don't know. I did a little bit of research, but I'm going to go along the lines that it was an incredibly good marketing strategy, and kudos to him.
Correct. Hats off. I mean, as I say, 7 years later, we're still talking about it. But number 2 on the list was Andreas Gursky's Reen 2. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. RHEIN, Reen 2. I'm going to put it up on the screen now. This sold.
Can I see
that? This sold at Christie's auction in New York City. $4.3 million as a photograph. Now, it's a large-scale image, and it depicts a digitally manipulated river scene outside Dusseldorf, devoid of people and buildings, described as a romantic hymn to the grandeur of the Rhine River. Now, I mean, again, amazing that a photograph can sell for that much.
Yeah.
I want people to comment below. What do you think of that photograph?
I've just looked it up on Google as you were talking there, and I'd be interested to see what people's opinion is on that as well, because that is not something that it's not something I would pay $4.3 million because I don't have $4.3 million. But again, it's in the eye of the beholder as well. This is why I used to, a few years ago, I used to go down that line of like, that's just a crap photo. That can't sell for that much, or I can't believe such and such is selling that. And I turned that off because I think it's just detrimental to your own progress as well. In a way,
Yes.
I just sort of thought, you know what, that's them, that's me.
Yeah.
If people are going to put work up like that and pay money for it, so be it.
Yep.
But that's not worth 4.3 million.
It's quite amazing, isn't it? And
yeah.
I need to do a bit more research on it and find out, like, was it the only print? I'm assuming it was for that kind of coin.
Was it
printed
taken on a camera that's, you know, never been used before? Or
be awesome it wasn't printed on archival paper.
This little home Canon inkjet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and now they've got a lovely faded sort of $3.5 million print. Interestingly enough, without going too far into it, Andreas Gursky has actually got 3 of the top 10 in terms of images sold. Yeah. One of his photographs that I love is called 99 Cent. And I will put that up on the screen as well. I've made a lot of work for myself in this edit, Cam.
You have, and I'm just looking up these as we go again. I don't know.
Yeah. 99 Cent by Andreas Gursky. I love that photo. It's a ripper.
Is that all? Is that? Oh yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. Very, very cool photo. So,
right. And it was taken in 1999.
There you go.
Yeah. Right.
So that's our little take on what we think a photograph's worth. Love to hear your comments. Love to hear what you think the worth is of photography. It's a great subject to talk about.
And if anyone would like to buy the grass tree behind me, I'm selling that for 7.1 million.
Okay.
Nice. For this week only.
All right. Well, okay. Remember, I've got a 99% off sale.
What about if we did like a crowdfunding thing where we actually raise 7.1 million just to beat Peter Lick's most expensive photograph?
Yes.
We'll sell that. We'll donate it all to a charity, but we'll get the title of most expensive photo ever.
Love it.
We only need 7.1 million listeners.
That's right. I think we should start a movement.
There you go.
Yep. Okay. Moving right along. I knew this podcast would go over time, but that's cool. We have got our Dear Cam segment back up and running this week.
We do. Someone actually wrote in, didn't they?
I know. So Sylvia asks, Dear Cam, I don't know. Sorry, Sylvia. That's probably a terrible impersonation of your voice. I don't know why I just went slightly high pitched.
We should have got one of our partners to come in and do the voiceover.
That's right.
We can barely put an edit together. I don't think we can do voiceovers yet.
We're assuming that Sylvia is a woman.
Well, yeah, either or.
That's right. Dear Cam, what are your best settings for birds in flight on an Olympus?
Right. Wow.
Interesting that she did now clearly.
She's an Olympus user.
Got an Olympus.
Yes.
But I would imagine that the settings would be relevant across all brands.
Well, I think you would think so. But having said that, it would depend on what Olympus camera Sylvia has. If she has the EM1X, it actually has artificial intelligence that recognizes birds in flight and speeds the focus up to actually get that in focus. But we'll assume that she doesn't have that camera, and we'll go back to the bigger pool of cameras out there. But like I've done a little bit of bird photography in my life, and generally it's I'm out doing landscape and the light's just really crappy, and like, oh, there's some beautiful birds flying around. I'll chase them for a while. I went through a stage of capturing wedge-tailed eagles. I love the wedge-tailed eagles we have down in Tassie. They are just so majestic and huge and incredibly great to photograph. But for me, really with bird photography, there's two things you really got to keep an eye on, and one is your shutter speed is probably the most important thing. You don't want to get that blurry motion of the bird flapping its wings or moving or getting out of frame. And the other as well is trying to keep that background nice and soft behind the bird. If you're taking birds that are stationary on branches, you don't want heaps of mass behind them being in focus as well. So to me, I'd be putting my camera onto either shutter priority or aperture priority. For me, I'd probably do aperture priority. I'd probably open the aperture up to about f4. Birds aren't really fat and thick. So generally, if you can get the focus right on the bird at f4 aperture, you'll get some nice sort of shallow depth of field. I would be inclined to put my ISO pack, maybe even on auto, just so the shutter speed will just keep up with what the focal length that you're using is. And the other one that's important, especially with birds, is what autofocus mode you go into. Now that differs from camera to camera. There's all these different cameras that have all different autofocus modes and servo modes and God knows what modes. I'd be putting it on continuous autofocusing. If you've got tracking on your camera, that will also help if you can track the subject. But yeah, you want to probably have it on the most reactive autofocus and continuous autofocus you can. But that'd be sort of my setting. So something like aperture priority, aperture as open as maybe f4, put your ISO on auto, and then autofocus on some sort of continuous autofocusing or tracking. You could go shutter priority and check the shutter speed at say 1,000th of a second. Again, leave your ISO at auto, and the aperture should hopefully go with it. But to me, you want to make sure that aperture's sort of separating that bird from the background if you can, which is where that shallow depth of field comes in handy. And shooting on a tripod, I think, would be a bit tricky. A lot of bird photographers might use a monopod just to get that little bit of extra balance. But hand holding, if you've got the Olympus cameras, you'll also have inbuilt stabilization, maybe on the lens as well. So you should be right hand holding and panning and chasing those birds around. So that'd be what I'd go with. But birds are tricky. Birds can be really flighty. I was going to say they're going to be flighty. They are going to be flighty.
Very flighty.
They can be, but they can move it, in a moment's notice. So, you could dig right into it, make sure that, you're nice and quiet, be really still, pick your location and sit there for a while. But I think with Olympus, Olympus is a great system to shoot birds on. I've got the 40 to 150 mil 2.8 lens, and I've shot a lot of the eagles. I've shot on that camera. That way you can shoot almost at f2.8, and get the shutter speed and the image stabilization to work together, and you should get some nice shots. But yeah, I hope that helps.
Very cool, mate. Very cool. I exactly follow up with back up exactly what you've just said. Two things for me. The thing that makes a fantastic wildlife photograph, in my opinion, is that you have sharp focus on the eyes of the animal. Birds in flight, I know, can be tricky, but if you can somehow manage to get a little glint of sunlight off the eye, because generally most birds you shoot will have very, very dark eyes. If you can get the glint of light off the eye, and I understand, again, in flight, that's going to be a bit hit and miss. I love looking at wildlife photos where they've caught the eye of the animal nice and sharp. And the only other thing I would say, if it were me, and that is, and you mentioned panning, a bird in flight is obviously going past you. So panning as you're taking the photograph is really important, because you might have a shutter speed that will blur the background but keep your subject focused as that bird's moving by you. A lot of people make this mistake. The bird will be going by them and they'll go like this, snap. Wrong. What you need to do is go snap and follow through. So like a good golf swing. So snap like that, because what's happening there is the shutter's staying open for that split second. So that's how you get the blurred background, but the sharp subject is by following through when you take the photo. So
and you can relate that also. You can marry that into doing like sports photography as well. The panning, you can sort of move that camera at the same speed as the athlete, or the race car going past. So it's actually a good one to get into the habit of getting better at, is panning. Panning is a bit of an art form, and you can actually then take that into your landscape photography and do all those funky panning shots where you just have blurry colors and of a sunset or something like that. So
absolutely.
But that's a good one. Thanks, Sylvia. That's
if you've got a deer cam question, please send us a little question below. Send us a comment below, or you can send us an email, or you can visit our Facebook page. Comment there if you want. Just make sure you start your off with them, and that'll get eyeballs on it from us, and we can have a look at it for next week. So tonight, Cam, I hope you've enjoyed yourself. I know I have.
It's always a pleasure. It's been great, and like I said, just going back to the listeners and the guys tuning in, I'm quietly blown away that we've got so many people that have tuned in and subscribed and subscribed on YouTube and obviously signed up on the iTunes and Podbean. It's good. And, we're putting these shows on. We like having a chat. It's always good for Brendan and I to catch up. But the more interaction we get from you guys, I think the better the show will get. If we get some more deer cams and more questions, and, we'll get controversial as we go along, and we'll say things that people won't agree with. But yeah, so far it's been great. So thank you to everyone out there, and hopefully this is another episode that can fill in an hour of your day and get you inspired to go out and click some more frames.
So in about a week's time, will we be finding you back down south in Tassie, or will you be in Melbourne?
Funny you say that. I don't technically leave Melbourne until the 18th of July. That's what I've got booked on the Spirit of Spew.
There you go.
So I actually have, we were talking the other night about doing the Great Ocean Road. My wife and I are going to go down and explore. We're going to go to Apollo Bay, and we're going to go to Port Fairy. I've got another friend in Port Fairy who I'm going to try and catch up. Another photographer, Stacey Woods Photography. She does a lot of portrait and wedding work down there. She's one of the better ones down there, and if not the best. And so we're going to catch up with them, and I'm going to scout some locations out for a potential Great Ocean Road sort of workshop thing I might put on next year, or we might put in next year. Who knows?
Who knows where that might take us, mate? Yeah, you can't go wrong. While you're here in Victoria, come on down and check out the Great Ocean Road. Port Fairy, there's a place.
Yeah, I've been to Port. I actually played. Would you believe I actually played a game of cricket for Port Fairy Cricket Club once?
That's awesome.
I went down as a guest cricketer. It wasn't a good day for me.
Well, funny enough, I played the Port Fairy golf course a few years ago, and that wasn't a good day for me. But anyway, we'll
that's why we take photos.
That's right, exactly right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Thanks,
this week. We look forward to talking to you next week. Cam, over and out. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.
Thanks,
for now.
guys. Ciao. Bye.
See ya.